We can sit here and say the Baylor Bears are going to be a great football team next year, and that's fine, but we're either Baylor fans or we cover the team, and you really need somebody from the outside looking in that knows the full scope of college football to tell you, are you really going to be that good? The guy that joins the show today, well, he's got a pretty good idea where Baylor sits. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Drake Toll here with Sikkim 365, joined today by John Whitaker, otherwise known as Big Game Boomer. Thanking you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. John, where I want to start, there are some folks out there, inevitably, the olds, that will see Big Game Boomer and think, oh, God, that guy. John, you have put together some of the greatest lists. Like, you compile these things on a daily basis. And the first thing I want to get to build your credential for the folks that are questioning you, when you put together these lists of football teams and coaches and positions, what kind of work goes into that every day?
There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, it really depends on the list. When we're talking ranking players and stuff like that, that takes a while. Like, I've been working on the top 50 offensive guards over the last couple of days. Those take a while because it's crazy how the players view those lists and how the coaches view those lists. So I do try to be pretty accurate with those. So they do take a while, but then some stuff, where I'll do a little bit of research at night and put some stuff on a map and, post it. It doesn't take long. I've got it kind of down to a science. I've got a few different templates that I use. But no, man, it's fun, and it's not like it's false material. It's really just my opinion that I just started doing these lists, and it just kind of caught storm. And here we are like a year later, and I've got, I don't know how many followers I have. I think I've got over 30, almost 40,000 on Twitter and on Instagram. So it's great. It's people like arguing about sports, and it's just kind of become a great hub for that.
Well, John, I know Baylor's been at the top of a lot of your different lists, and being an Oklahoma guy, you've seen Baylor in action plenty of times following the Big 12, and I've seen in your latest rankings, one of them had Baylor in the top 10, one has in the top 15, Daveranda as a top 20 head coach. When I give you the blanket statement or the blanket question of what do you see in Baylor football in 2022, what are the first things that come to mind for you, who has examined every team in the nation?
Yeah, last year Baylor just kind of came on. No one thought they were going to be any good. You had guys like Trestan Ebner, Abram Smith, guys that no one was talking about preseason, that just kind of came out and just balled, having over 1,600 yards rushing. So, they came out, but, Baylor, it was a special season last year. My concern for Baylor is they lost a lot of talent on offense. You lost your two best running backs, two best wide receivers, defense in the secondary, lost a little bit there. And then, the deal with Bohannon transferring, and now Blake Shapen is stepping in to be the quarterback. He looked pretty good in the Big 12 championship. But it's a question mark. So I feel like Baylor this season, I've got them in the top 25, just more out of respect for the program and what Daveranda has built. But I feel like there's a lot of question marks going into this season. More question marks, than say like OU or OSU. That's kind of how I see Baylor right now.
Yeah, one of the things that I've kind of heard in the last couple of weeks is coming into Baylor's season last year, it was kind of the same deal. You had a bunch of question marks of guys like Abram Smith you just didn't know, or Trestan Ebner, how is he going to progress? Jalen Pitre, Terrell Bernard, these guys are good. Can they take that next step? Obviously they did. So then in that regard, with Baylor coming in next season with a lot of, similar question marks in those same positions with new guys, what is it about Baylor where those question marks can be developed into a Sugar Bowl team, whereas if Texas has a question mark, a la their offensive line, it's typically, signs of the season being a dud?
Yeah, I think it's just it takes a while to build up a program, and I think Baylor needs a couple strong, recruiting classes to kind of cycle in, so where they don't have to rebuild. Like it feels like this season could be a rebuild, kind of. But whereas instead of rebuilding, you're reloading, and that's what happens when you start recruiting well, and which I think Coach Aranda is definitely capable of doing. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I feel like the Big 12 is the most wide open conference this year, going into the start of the season. There's not a clear favorite.
Yeah. With that too, I know you're really high on Daveranda. He's in his second year as a head coach, and I saw your top head coaches, and you dropped him in, I think it was 18 out of the top 20.
Yeah.
What is it about Daveranda that you already like so much, even in 2 years, to put him in that top 20?
First of all, what he did at LSU, he was a solid coordinator there, on a national championship team, and then just kind of bringing Baylor out of nowhere. 2020 is just a screwy year for everybody. But, last year, I think a lot of people had Baylor finishing 8th or 9th, and then they just come out with this physical run game and stout defense that really just caught everybody by surprise. And what I like about Aranda is his demeanor on the sidelines is just so calm, cool, and collected. Like, you guys could score a touchdown or you could throw an interception. His reaction stays the exact same. He's very poised. And that's what I like about him. And I thought that maybe like LSU was going to poach him, or another big school with some of these job openings last season, but seems like he's committed for the long haul. And that's a huge for y'all, because I think he's a great coach, and I think he can continue to build at Baylor for sure.
John, looking at the scope of the Big 12 next season, with Oklahoma and Texas obviously at the top of a lot of people's rankings, Oklahoma State up there too with Spencer Sanders coming back, where do you see Baylor finishing right now amongst the 10 teams in the Big 12 next season?
Gosh, it's so hard because like Texas, we know that they get overhyped every single offseason. But like this offseason, and especially if they get Jordan Addison, it's like, God, how are they not going to finish at least like second in the conference?
If anybody can find a way, it's Texas. They can find a way.
Yeah, if they lose to Kansas with all that talent, someone's got to get fired or something. So, I think the contenders are definitely OU, Texas, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and then I think K-State is pretty solid this season. I think they're gonna. I don't know if they'll win the conference, but I think they're going to upset some folks. So I would say Baylor, that four that I just mentioned, that's kind of the tier, the competitors that are kind of competing for that championship. But yeah, we'll see. There's just a lot of question marks on a lot of these teams. And, we're going to find out here in a couple months, some of those answers.
Yeah, I think that I love that you bring up how wide open the Big 12 is, because you've mentioned Baylor. Do they rebuild or do they reload at positions like wide receiver, in the secondary, or even talking running back positions as well? Very important, pivotal parts of the football field, right? Yeah. And that remains to be seen for a lot of these Big 12 teams and where they finish. No surprise if Baylor wins the conference. No surprise if they finish fourth at 8-4, especially the way their schedule lines out. But the next thing, John, that I want to get into is kind of, we've just had it drop in our lap, that divisions, pods, something in college football is about to change. But before we get there, what shouldn't change is, I promise you, John's not going away, and that is Bet Online. It shouldn't change being in your daily sports betting routine. Bet Online is your place to go when it comes to all things sports betting, because Bet Online it's the number one source, right? For the other day, the Mavericks are playing the Suns, right? The Mavericks at halftime were plus 11 in the second half, right? And I thought, like, all right, I'll go Mavericks, I don't know. I'll go Suns minus 11. I thought the Suns were going to come back. I was wrong. Had you not been wrong, you could have won a lot of money on Bet Online. It is your place for all things MLB gambling. You have, what is the live betting? Live betting, you can do that stuff there too. NFL futures, college football futures, all there right now at Bet Online. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more at Bet Online. That's where the game starts. Go to Bet Online. Now, John, college football is obviously changing. We're in this weird era of NIL and transfer
It's crazy,
portal, and
man.
there's no consistency anywhere across the board. The NCAA
Yeah.
now saying that you can take however many players you want to take out of a class. They're still keeping the scholarships at 85. They're saying you don't have to play a conference championship game. I'll go here first. The death of a conference championship game, while it objectively sucks for the average college football fan, is this good for the sport?
Well, I think it depends if they're going to expand the playoff. I think if they expand it to 8 or 12 teams, then that gives you an extra week to get maybe some like home playoff games in.
Yeah.
It really depends on the conference. Like, I feel like the SEC, that championship game has a lot of meaning to it. Like the ACC, Pac-12. Some of those conferences, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of weight to those.
Yeah.
I like the Big 12. I like how we play every team and then the two best teams go play, which is kind of what, like, I just saw the Pac-12 is getting rid of divisions this season. So they're kind of going to the model that we're currently on. If we got rid of the conference championship games, I don't think it's the end of the world.
From a standpoint, if anyone has a monopoly on college football knowledge, it is you. And to pitch this to you, do you see everyone turning to pods or turning to, they have the built-in rivals or whatnot? What do you see coming about from these leagues and how they'll try to build schedules moving forward?
Yeah, man. So the pods sounds awesome. I mean, I am completely on board with that, where you've got 3 teams you play every year, and then you play like 4 or 5 other teams every year, every other year. I just see it becoming just a giant mess, just getting the pods in order. Like, you're going to have, I've heard Texas A&M does not want to be in the same pod as Texas, but really they should be. I mean, that's a game that should be played every year. So I don't know if the politics of it are going to prevent some sort of pod system, because someone's going to get screwed some way or the other on their pod system. Like, if Auburn has to play Bama, Florida, and Georgia every year, they're going to feel like they got the short end of the stick. So I like it. I think we're headed to something like that. It's just, what exactly is going to happen? It may just be like the Big 12 right now, where we just have 10 teams. They play and they play everybody, and the 2 best teams go to the championship game.
Something that I've kicked around here recently has been the way these conferences are going to be able to build the schedule now around their great teams. For example, in the SEC, Alabama seldom goes to the East to play, an up Florida team or a good Georgia team, right? Typically, the best teams in the East are crossing over with a Vanderbilt or somebody they can beat, because you want as many wins as possible, if you're the conference, for a team or two to make it to the playoff. And I think you're now giving leeway for a lot of these conferences to do the same thing without these built-in matchups. Do you see kind of a trend in that direction where conferences really start to build their better team schedules around an opportunity to go to a playoff?
Yeah, I do see that. And, I hope it doesn't take away, some of these rivalries that have been going on for, over 100 years. Because that's the best part of college football, is the pageantry, the rivalries, the different fan bases. So, if they're going to do that, I hope they respect the rivalries and make sure that those games still happen every year, because I think those are very important for college football. Everyone likes those games.
One of the things, too, when it comes to conferences and realignment, I saw that you tweeted out talking about really where the Big 12 teams will go, and your confidence in Baylor and Texas Tech going to the Pac-12, which I don't see being an impossibility. It feels like if there were 2 teams that kind of would vaguely fit that, no Big 12 team really fits the mold, but if there are 2 that vaguely, maybe it's Baylor and Tech. What puts you on that bandwagon?
Well, it's tough, because the Pac-12 doesn't historically accept like religious schools.
Yeah.
So with Baylor being a Baptist school, that kind of throws that, idea out the window. I don't know. I think the Pac-12 is going to eventually do something. They need to be in at least the central time zone to get eyeballs on Pac-12 games. So, I said Baylor, but maybe Texas Tech and Oklahoma State make more sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I know that Baylor and TCU definitely tried to, pursue the Pac-12 at the beginning of this whole realignment thing back in August when all this broke.
Yeah.
They weren't going to add anybody. So we'll see. I mean, something could happen tomorrow and we could be on here again being like, holy, who saw that coming?
Yeah.
Because it's all smoke and mirrors right now.
It's a guessing game. And you mentioned how a lot of the stuff you put out, it's your opinion as a college football fan and analyst. And I think that's where everybody is right now, is just like, well, this could happen. And it's tough to be wrong at this point, right? Because we've seen so many things move and shake across the scope of college football. One thing I want to pitch at you, this just doesn't have to do with conferences, but I want to know this before we get into our third segment. Dude, why isn't Texas back? You put Baylor as your best team in the state of Texas for next season, which I think is objectively true. But Texas recruits 5-star guys. Their athletes are exponentially better than Baylor's guys. But Baylor seems to beat them or be in a game with them every year. What is holding Texas back from being as elite as they recruit?
It's one word. It's culture. Those guys go there thinking that they're, cream of the crop. 5-star blue chip players, and I don't think they work as hard. I don't think they're bought into the program. You can take a bunch of 5-stars and sure, they're talented, but if they're not bought in to a program and what that team is trying to do, I would much rather have a team that's completely bought into their program with a bunch of 2 and 3 stars, like a Kansas State or something, than a team like Texas. I think that they've had cultural issues. I don't think Tom Herman was a good guy at molding, building a team, building the locker room. We've seen it with Charlie Strong and Tom Herman, and here we are. They went 5-7 last year and lost to Kansas. I mean, just looked horrible. But preseason, I saw ESPN has them in the top 10. So, and they look good. On paper, they should be a top 10 team. That offense is going to be elite. But, it's we've been saying this for a decade now, that it's just what they do.
Yeah. Well, my next questions, I have a whole line of questioning, John, when it comes to how you have built the empire on Twitter that you've created in the last even 2 years. But before that, I want to talk about an empire that is almost as big, if not bigger, and that is Built Bar. When I tell you, Built Bar has a monopoly on health, because you can right now eat a candy bar that is not a candy bar. It's just a Built Bar. Birthday cake puffs right now. Birthday cake puffs are my go-to. 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, 9 grams of sugar. A candy bar, 250 calories. That's a lot more. Like no protein-ish, I think. And 30 grams of sugar. That's 3 times as much sugar. The flavor, you just don't know you're eating something healthy. Right? I've replaced my Built Bar now has replaced my daily granola bar, because apparently those aren't good for you. I learned that really recently. Built Bar birthday cake puffs. I used to not like birthday cake flavoring. I have recently gotten into it. I have been kind of on the fence. We have a love-hate relationship, birthday cake and I. But now Built Bar Puffs have me hooked. They can have you hooked as well. All I ask you to do is just try them. Just try at built.com, get the birthday cake puffs. Shoot me a picture of you eating the birthday cake puffs. And I don't know, I'll give you something, I guess. That's probably an empty promise. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 at built.com for 15% off your order. Built.com, promo code LOCKED15. John, I saw a picture it was a screenshot, and it was from 2020 that you actually sent, where you had 850 followers and you were following like 1,000 people. That has certainly changed. I was on the train pretty soon after those 850 were, and it's like almost overnight something happened. And before I even get into how nuts that's been, one of the things that I've seen consistently on every post is like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. And obviously you can't respond to every person that says that.
Yeah, I don't even bother.
But if there's a blanket statement that just goes into the fact that you do know what you're talking about. What is it? Calm those people's nerves.
I mean, I do my research. I mean, on these like player and coach rankings, like they're pretty close to what you'd see, from an ESPN analyst or something. So I do know what I'm talking about. Yeah, sometimes I'll take a few jabs at some of the bigger schools. And that's fun. That's just part of the game. It's fun. But, I've been doing this for over a year now, and it's blown up and it's fun. I'm not just throwing a bunch of names on a list and just tweeting out like I know a lot of out there have said. It's I mean, there's a reason that the lists kind of take off the way they do, because there is validity to them. And people get mad at me for posting them, and it is what it is. I think it's just part of the game.
One of the things that I find so interesting, you have unlocked this like secret magical key where we'll say, for example, you post NC State in your top 5, right? And all these like Texas fans come out and they're like, God, Texas could beat NC State by 2 touchdowns, rah! And they freak out and say all these terrible things about you and your account and how it's fake news and that you should never post again. The next day, you put Texas in your top 15, or like Quinn Ewers as a number 3 quarterback or something, and it's just 200 retweets from Texas.
And that's the way it is with every fan base. I have a love-hate relationship with every single fan base in college football. Maybe just besides like Clemson, because I know they don't like me down there because they think I rep South Carolina all the time. But yeah, that's what it's created. It's not like where like 24/7 I'm just going to post negative stuff about Baylor. I come up with an idea and I come up with an analysis for that list, and I have some sort of criteria that goes into that. So Baylor may look good one day on a list, and then the next day that may not be too good. And that's just part of the game. I mean, it's so that's why you have people that get angry and stuff. But yeah, the next day I've said that people, when they get mad, they say that it's clickbait. It's clickbait. Oh, this is just clickbait. He's just trying to get clicks. Like, I'm not a business. It's just me. Like there's no like trying to get a ton of views and everything. And but if I say something that they agree with, then it's a fact, and let's retweet it and use it as like recruiting propaganda. And so it's I don't know. It's been fun, man. Really has. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, the accolades stack, too, from Lane Kiffin, who obviously is like everything you post. If it's Ole Miss, it's retweet. And, guys you've had on your podcast individually, head coaches across college football, and all these interactions. It also feels like, and we talked about this off air, it's almost changing the mold of how these major businesses, an ESPN or a Sports Center, or which is the same thing, or 24/7 will post these graphics that are eerily similar to the things that you're putting out there. I saw BYU literally cited you as their most beautiful campus in America. This is a 2-year span of 40,000 follower growth. Could you have ever seen this?
No, I did not think it would take off like this. It's just, you got to be creative. Got to think, I always try to stay within kind of the current, what's going on in the college football world, and then try to make my list a little relevant based on that. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. But yeah, you've been following me since like this time last year, but back in January. So you've seen the rise. So it's
certainly nuts. Fun. And I know that there's plenty of content still out there that these lists have got to get pretty tough. It's like, wow, what else can we list off today? But they've been so creative and unbelievable.
There's always something. There's always something new.
Something is out there, right? Like who has the best fertilized grass in college? You could literally post that list. It would get 5,000 likes and 600 retweets of people that like see their school at 3. They've never been there. They've never seen the grass. It's just retweet. So that stuff's unbelievable to me. You're a marketing genius. And my last question, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. This was actually a fan sent this question in, knowing that you're coming on the show today. Jack Wheeler asks me. He says, "I'm going to need you to ask Big Game Boomer why he thinks Baylor cannot beat Oklahoma next season. The floor is yours."
Why? Well, you guys are coming up to Norman. There's that revenge factor. And God, it's just, I think Dylan Gabriel will be tough if he's still healthy by the time, because we play later in the season.
Yeah.
And that game. So have I said that Baylor's going to beat, or OU's going to beat Baylor?
I don't know that you have. I don't know that you put that out there, but this coming from our friend Jack, and I can only assume as an Oklahoma guy that you probably lean Oklahoma, at least right now, and maybe you don't. Kind of, what is your overall synopsis of that game? We're 6 months away.
I think it's just going to be one of those games that comes down to the last possession. I think that that's that balanced. I don't think OU's dominant enough to just blow teams out of Norman like they have in the past.
Yeah.
And the fan base is completely off base. They think that Brent Venables can win a national championship in his first season. And it's just like, come on, let's take a step back here. I think they'll go 10-2 at the best.
Yeah.
9. I won't be surprised if they go 9-3 or 8-4. So Baylor's definitely one of those toss-up games. So
I love it.
We'll see.
In Norman, Baylor's schedule is certainly not favorable next year. End of the season, who knows who's hurt and who's still alive by the time that comes around. And
I am going to the BYU Baylor game up in Provo,
dude.
So you gonna be up there?
Drinks on me, but not past 9. The bar's also non-alcoholic. It's Provo, Utah. The bars close at 9, and most of them really aren't bars. So
all right.
So I've heard, but I will. Yes,
we'll meet up.
Virgin drinks on me, Big Game Boomer, when we hit Provo, Utah. Dude, thanks for joining the show today. And what I want to do, obviously, is give you some time to plug anywhere people can find more of your content now that they've got a face to the account.
Yeah. So, you can find me on Twitter at Big Game Boomer. I try to do some sort of list daily, kind of put these things together at night and post them throughout the day. I'm on Instagram as well, Big Game Boomer. I've just started a podcast over the last couple of months. Had some players. I had Gary Bohannon on the show before he transferred. Had Shane Beamer and had Jed Fish, head coach of Arizona, last night. So it's just getting started. And go to Big Game Boomer Show on YouTube and check it out. And we're going to, as the season gets closer, we'll start cranking out more content. Looking forward to it.
John, thanks for coming on today and giving perspective and, again, offering that face to the account.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And for you at home, thank you for watching or listening to Locked On Baylor today. Come back tomorrow. We're doing a roundtable with myself and a BYU beat writer from Locked On BYU talking about Baylor, BYU, and the new Big 12 Conference. Thanks again for joining us today. For Drake Toll, Big Game Boomer, come back tomorrow. Make Locked On Big 12 your second listen, by the way. Half hour less. Big 12 experts got you covered. Josh Neighbors right there. And this has been Locked On Baylor.